Sorry. And if there is one, he plays right next to him in Jan Vertonghen. I don't see that selling him off is a very good option for Spurs. Vertonghen was a little bit of a lost soul himself at Spurs until Toby came along. And he had his countrymen beside him, and then look what Jan has turned into. Juan Foyth's future is one thing, and if Toby left tomorrow, I think Dyer slots back into that role. I don't know that Foyth is quite ready yet to take that on full time, especially in an FA Cup run and the Champions League run, and in fact was omitted from the Champions League squad. But your thoughts on Foyth, your thoughts on the Toby contract situation, and do those two have anything to do with each other?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Well, I think Foyth is
keep up with all of them.
Sorry.
Yeah, and thank God you gave me enough time to get the beer and check into my room.
There you go.
But, I like Foyth. He's in the matches he's played. There's been a couple of schoolboy errors, but I mean, let's face it, he's barely not a schoolboy. So I think he's definitely one for the future. And the more time he gets, the better he will develop. And I would like to think, what's Toby, 28, 29? If we can get that extension, I think if we get that extension out of him, that gives Foyth the time to develop, and then we bring in the person that's going to learn from that guy. Because again, let's face it, Vertonghen is also on the wrong side of 25. So is Sanchez and Foyth the future for this team in 2 to 3 years? And I think the answer is probably yes. And then you need to bring in, the depth from that point. I think what's been the challenge for us as a club is that we've relied on veterans because we've experimented with these centre backs that have just not panned out. So, Vertonghen's been with the club since 2012 now, and he is definitely the elder statesman of the centre backs. He's this season has been phenomenal for him, and he's had to step it up because of the elongated absence of Toby, and he has absolutely excelled. It's almost like when he was out and Wimmer stepped up. And then, well, unfortunately, that didn't pan out. But to answer the question, I think Foyth and Sanchez is the pairing of the future. It's interesting. Have they played together so far? Were they in the Newport game together? I can't remember. The away one, I know. So
I think they were, yeah.
Because Toby was
Toby
return,
played
right?
Newport.
Oh, I thought he was asking.
No. In the return, in the replay, I'm not sure who partnered in the first leg with him, but that I think has the makings as far as Toby and his contract talks. Obviously the papers had an absolute field day last Monday when the team flew out to Turin without him, and everything absolutely panned out as we saw today. And his flick on at the end was the assist that gave the Rochdale lads a payday at Wembley in a week's time. So he's still not 100%, and again, good run out for him, but he's not the Toby of old just yet, and he needs more time. But contract talks, you just can't believe what you're reading out there, because half the time it's nonsense. 75% of the time it's nonsense. So we have to trust that the club will do the right thing, and it might only be a 2-year contract extension. I don't know. I'd like to think it would be at least 3 or 4. That'll take him probably to the end of his career, or if he decides to go back home and play out there. I don't know, but I try not to listen to that nonsense, because one, it can upset you if you believe it, and two, it's not worth believing.
Yeah, it poses an interesting question, and obviously time is going to tell what happens with that situation. Sammy, it was funny. Julie Welsh, lovely lady and friend of the show, tweeted out, well, that was the most embarrassing thing I've seen Spurs do since the last most embarrassing thing that I've seen Spurs do.
Yeah, I love that.
It was a really good tweet. So along those lines, does this second leg against Rochdale, even though they're a lower league team, do you go out there, and we talked a little bit about the chemistry thing earlier, do you go out there and play basically the same 11 that you played today, or do you go out there and try to make an early statement? You play Kane, you play Eriksen, you play Dele, you play Lamela, you play your starting 11, And then if things are going well, you pull them off at halftime and coast in for the victory, or do you kind of stay with the same blueprint and not change anything?
I think the best way to answer that question is to look at Pochettino and look at his history of things. I mean, there's something to be said about a manager not changing things because he believes in his players, and sort of what Tim and I were kind of speaking to earlier is the fact that 11 should have beaten Rochdale today. I mean, period. It's not a big ask to ask that 11 to beat Rochdale, and I don't think that he disrespects this cup. There's a lot of that noise going on today. I didn't think that lineup represented a disrespect of the FA Cup. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a good number of players that you saw today in the return leg. I really wouldn't surprise me at all. Would Harry start? Would it be enough to have that 10 of the 11 and just take out Llorente and put in Kane? Maybe. I mean, the commentator made an interesting point today. I mean, Kane hasn't missed a lot of games, period. So I don't think you need to make a whole lot of changes, and it wouldn't surprise me to see that there's not a lot of changes. Look, if we go and we win the return leg 3-0, with most of that lineup, Poch is the genius again, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And looking at the fixtures that this falls around, I don't think you can take a Dembele at his age and he's just getting back to complete match fitness, which has made him absolutely unplayable in the last 2 weeks. I don't think that you can ask him to play on a Sunday and then on a Wednesday and then again on a Saturday, and you got to have those removable and replaceable and interchangeable pieces that allow you to move forward in a competition like this, get to the quarterfinals or whatever's next for us, and continue to have success. We've got another favorable, if we can get past Rochdale, draw either against Wednesday or Swansea. So
let me jump in on it, Kenny.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So I think you mentioned Dembele, and I just wanted to touch on that real quick. I actually think we could see him against Rochdale. Because think about it. You just talked about with his injuries and fitness, can you play him back-to-back games, 2 games in a week? Well, you go Rochdale on Wednesday, Huddersfield on Saturday, Juve on Wednesday. So think about it. Which do you want him rested fully for Juve? If so, he sits Huddersfield and he's available for Rochdale. That gives him that full week.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Well, and does he play against Palace, though?
He has to.
True.
I'd say he has to.
So then he wouldn't play against Rochdale and be ready for Huddersfield, right?
He could be our sub. Super sub Dembele.
That's a good question. But that's a good question.
No, I didn't think about that, Chairs. I agree. I mean, yeah, I think the Palace game is more important than the Rochdale game.
Yeah, because you got a club that's still fighting for their lives. I know they're not in the bottom 3 anymore, but they're definitely going to be, out to do one on us, and it's never an easy place to go to. I mean, it was a slog earlier, later last season when Eriksson got his goal towards the end of the game, and we huffed and puffed in that a little bit. And I know we've gone there and lost, and granted we're getting ahead of ourselves, but yeah, I think you need Dembele for that Palace game.
Is it too much to say that if we lose that game, like that could be the catalyst for a lot of shit to unwind? Is that a real stain on our season? Is it something that...
Are you talking about Palace or Rochdale?
No, Rochdale, sorry. Yeah. I mean, we lose that game. We don't win that. I mean, could that be a catalyst for just...
I think especially at Wembley, for as well as we've played, if we...
It's not happening.
If we lay an egg,
I hope you're right. Yes, I hope you're right, but I think you're right. I think you're right, but you get my point, right? Like if we can't do that, I mean, my gosh, how can you have belief in the other endeavors, top 4 and Champions League, but you can't Rochdale at Wembley?
Shame on you for asking that question. Shame on you.
But I asked it within the context of producing a lineup. I asked it within the context of, okay, well, in that and of itself, do we just say fuck it? We just put our Premier League starting 11 in there and just say, you know what, they're going to play back-to-back games.
And it also makes you wonder, how
I don't
much do
think
these players buy into what is going on in terms of this cup?
But they all do. They all do. That's the thing that's just so.
Well, then this match coming up ought to be what Swansea just did to Notts and 8-1 and walk them out. Here's your you swap shirts. Here's your paycheck. Now get the fuck off my pitch.
I mean, they didn't play well, and it's like, well, why didn't they play well? Did they not? Did they not buy into the magic of the FA Cup at that point? No, I think they all understood that. Should they have been excited? Yes. Were they rested? Yes. I mean, was it just a collection? It's just one of those things that I guess it kind of comes down to we win 3-0. He's a genius. Wow, great lineup, hungry players, all want to look, make their mark, blah blah blah, and it just didn't really work out that way.
Yeah, I think that the size of the Wembley pitch, the event that it is going to be for Rochdale is going to be a little bit too much for those players to overcome. I really honestly feel that. I think that they basically shot their load today and played on their home pitch on a brand new laid pitch that they probably haven't seen most of those players ever from their club, because of the magnitude of what this was, and because they had that familiar surrounding. They played well enough to gain a draw against Tottenham, or we didn't play well enough to allow them to gain a draw against us. So now it's Wembley. The pitch is bigger. The crowd is going to be massive. There could be upwards of 40 or 50,000 people for a match like this. And I just think the event's going to be a little bit too big for them, and we should run them off the park. End of story. That's how I feel this should end. Let's move on, because the FA Cup's discussion is going to piss me off if we keep talking about it. Juventus and Spurs, 2-2 at the Allianz, down 2-0 early. 2 Gonzalo Higuain goals. We talked a little bit about the Davis incident in the box, gaining a penalty, and he had a little bit of a shocking start in that match. Timmy, first time since moving to the Allianz that Juve has ever given up a 2-goal lead since 2011, since they moved into that stadium. Spurs of old, it's well noted, probably would have lost this 6-0. The guys came back because they believe in the system, and that's basically what this boils down to, yes?
Yeah, I mean, believing in the system, it's that never say die attitude. You go down 2-0, and the Spurs of old, and I think Christian Eriksen even talked about this afterwards, like a couple seasons ago, that would have went from 2-0 to like a 6-1 drubbing, like it did against Liverpool when AVB got sacked. So to come back against a team like Juventus, going 2-0 down in the first 8 minutes, it's great to see that intensity, that fight, that desire to win. And, I would have been happy with it 2-1, coming back with just the away goal. But now you got 2 of them. It's all tied up. Mm-hmm. Come back home with that advantage. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. And Simon, one of the things that's happened this weekend is Gonzalo Higuain picked up a pretty nasty knock. It's not a break, it's not a ligament or tendon or anything like that, but it's an extremely deep bruise that they are saying may keep him sidelined for this match. That makes the recovery time of Paulo Dybala extremely important for Juventus, because I do believe they are going to go into this match knowing that Tottenham are going to press them, they're going to play physical. It's not something that Juve likes to have shoved in their face, and it showed. This is a very advantageous time for Tottenham as we near the possibility of once again heading into the quarterfinals of the Champions League.
Yeah, I thought it was. I didn't read the details as you just recanted them, but I thought it was very presumptuous of them to say that he could be a miss already for a game that's still a couple of weeks away, and anything can happen. And we know that in football. I mean, wasn't Czech injured in the game before he played against us, and obviously, he was fit enough and he played to blind us. So I don't want to read too much into it. I think it's way too early. So he's a very dangerous player, as we saw on Tuesday, and missing the penalty as well. It could have been a lot worse. So it would definitely be a big miss for them. I think when we get round to previewing that in a week or so, it will be interesting to see what the update is on that injury.
Yeah, one of the things, Sammy, that really I was a little bit in shock of was that we just completely dominated that game. what we did against United, what we did against Arsenal here recently, but this one on the road against a club that played in the final of the Champions League against Real Madrid last year, we played them off their own park, and their manager was so furious. He storms off the pitch at full time. It was a beautiful thing. It was the performance of a lifetime.